So that is Spikeball. In 2008, I brought it back to life and want to tell you today a little bit about our story, how we kind of came about, and then more importantly, tell you about the role that community has had in our success. They are 99.9% of the reason we've done so well. So in 1989, a good friend of mine bought a Spikeball set from a local toy store, brought it back to our neighborhood. I'm originally from Kankakee, Illinois, which is a small town about an hour south of Chicago. Brought the game back to the neighborhood, and we fell in love with it and kind of played it on and off. And fast forward to 2003, me and those friends, my brother, his wife, myself, and my now wife, all went on vacation to Kauai. And one of those friends brought the beat-up old Spikeball set from the 80s and kind of rekindled our love for it. And that's where I really generated a love for it. And as we were playing, strangers would walk up to us and ask us the same three questions. What's that game? How do you play? And where can I get it? First two questions were pretty easy, but the where can I get it part we didn't really know, because from what we understood, the original company gave up on it. It was around for a year or two back in late 80s, early 90s, and we don't know if they went out of business, just gave up on the product or what, but we knew you couldn't get it anymore. So that trip to Kauai was pretty important to me. Not only did I discover my love of Spikeball, my girlfriend became my fiance. She's now my wife, so pretty pivotal trip in my life. So as more and more people kept asking us about the game and the strangers walking up, we kind of realized, I think this is the marketplace talking to us. People are into this. We have a love for it, but all these other people do as well. So we started thinking, maybe we could actually bring this thing back to life, and thought it was a pretty good idea. And we did what most people do with good ideas, which is nothing. We talked about it for a couple of years. The statements would start with, we really should, and then just fill in the blank and never did anything. So a couple of years of that, I got sick and tired of that, so I said, all right, guys, I'm going to talk to some attorneys and see if, can we actually legally, kind of get the rights and bring this thing back. So that's what we did. And in 2008, me and those same friends, brother, cousin, childhood friends, etc., chipped in a total of about $100,000, and we were in business. And I ran it by myself for about 5 years, and it was a side job. So I worked for Microsoft at the time, worked for Live Nation for a while, kind of big, what I consider, just big corporate jobs. And Spikeball work would begin after my wife and 3 young kids would go to bed. So that was usually around 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And we'd be up until, 1 or 2 in the morning, more or less every night. And I'm assuming, like most of you, when you were first getting started, it was kind of a one-man show. Finance, customer service, product, you name it, that was me. So our first, quote, warehouse was my basement. Had about 600-700 units down there. And there was a late night post office a couple miles from my place in Chicago. So I'd usually do customer service and marketing and social media and all that up until about midnight. Would then start handwriting postage. Back then I didn't know you could actually print postage, so when I discovered that, it was just efficiency through the roof. So eventually started printing postage, which was huge, and would drive this beauty to the post office late night. So the first few times I went, it'd be 1 box here, 2 boxes there. But I think this was a few years later. My world record was 82 units I could fit in my 1998 Outback. Rest in peace, she died last year. But that car hauled thousands of sets and pretty much did this more or less for 5 years. And then in October of 2013, we hit $1 million in annual revenue with 0 full-time employees. Still a side job. So at that time, my wife and I agreed, all right, safe to quit the day job. And at that point, I got to make one of the best phone calls of my life. I got to call my boss and give my 2 weeks, and that was just incredible. If you haven't done it, please, it's awesome. So did that and went full time, and the growth kept going and going. We launched in 2008, and if we haven't doubled every year, we've tripled revenue every year. So we're still on this beautiful trajectory. And then in May of 2015, we were on Shark Tank, and that was just a fantastic experience. We were on primetime TV for about 12 minutes in front of 7 million Americans. I've had a bunch of reruns since then. We did do a deal on the show, but from what I've learned, a lot of those deals don't actually happen in real life. So that's what happened to ours, but that was fine. Money was sort of a nice to have. We didn't necessarily need it. And yeah, so that brings us to today. Our 13th employee just started on Monday. We're number 139 on the Inc. 500. We're going to have 250, maybe 300 tournaments this year. Did revenue last year in the neighborhood of about 7 million, and we're on pace to about double that this year. So things are going really well. We're still absolutely tiny, but hope to grow to be some of the size that you guys are. But all the success we've had so far has been largely due to the community. And a lot of companies say that, but I've got some pretty good examples here just showing that, our growth isn't because, we're brilliant marketers or because, we know what we're doing. It's just kind of been stumbling on things and figuring it out as we go. I mean, I sold online ads before this. I talked my way out of all of my business classes in college. I'm a photojournalism major. I'm the absolute last person that should be running. And I didn't even like sports all that much. Don't tell that many people. But it was not a big part of my life before Spikeball. So absolutely unqualified to run a company like this. But I think that actually has worked in our favor. So as the first 5 years of the company, we were purely e-commerce. So Spikeball.com and Amazon for the most part, 98% of it being Spikeball.com. And with that, in the early days, I would send an email to every single customer saying, thanks for buying Spikeball. By the way, if you don't mind me asking, how'd you hear about it? And heard from three distinct groups. The first was PE teachers. So it made sense to me. They were looking for new games, wanted to engage kids. And the next one kind of made me scratch my head, ultimate Frisbee players. I'd never played a game of Ultimate. I've still never played a game of Ultimate. Didn't hang out with Ultimate Frisbee players. But somehow, someone in that community lit the fire. And kept hearing from people, my Ultimate coach showed me, or my buddy who plays Ultimate. So started marketing towards the Ultimate community. And then another one, the third group that confused me even more was faith-based youth groups. I'm not a member of any faith community. I didn't say, let's go after that. If you had me draw up my list of 100 targets, they would not have been in the top 100. But kept hearing from kids saying, my youth minister told me about it. Or I'm a member of Young Life. My Young Life leader told me about it. I'd never heard of Young Life, but looked it up, and turns out it's this giganto faith-based group, global organization. Hundreds of thousands of kids are in it. And they meet like once a month, and they meet at one of the kids' houses. So that may mean there's like 50, 60 high school kids in somebody's house for a couple-hour meeting. Part of that is discussing their faith. The other part is some sort of physical activity just to kind of generate a bond and bring the community together. And we were learning that activity more and more often was becoming Spikeball. So we just started shipping as many free sets as we could. I went to the Young Life directory and just started reaching out to them and saying, hey, the group in Nashville, Brittany, I don't know where you are, but Nashville Young Life was fantastic for us and still is. And identified these other communities basically that had lit the fire on their own. It wasn't us that said, yes, Young Life or faith-based is what we want to do. We just asked the question to kind of learn where these fires were being lit. And through these emails, I started forming relationships with people, got to know them, and then people would start just sending me random stories about what Spikeball meant to them, or about how they've been playing, or whatever it may be. And this is one that we got where Jordan on the right, he put up a tweet saying, "Hey guys, my Spikeball net broke. Can I get a replacement part? By the way, I met my wife playing Spikeball." I'm like, holy, like you're burying the lead here. We'll get you the part, of course. Got a lifetime warranty, by the way. But tell me the story. So they both went to college together, and he was playing Spikeball on campus. She walked up. I don't know if it was him or the game that attracted her to walk up. And just like we experienced in Hawaii, she asked him, "What's that game?" And fast forward a few years later, and they're now married. So the fact that I got to play a tiny, tiny role in them meeting and just that relationship forming is just incredible. This is another random email I got. So Seth Richmond, who's a good friend now, was on this worldwide tour. I had no idea who he was. These photos showed up in my inbox. This is him playing Spikeball at base camp at Mount Everest. How awesome is that? So yeah, he decided of all the gear he was going to hike up to base camp that the extra 3 pounds of the Spikeball set was a fantastic investment. And I agree, they're beautiful photos. A few days later, he sent me another email. He's in some desert and he's got the camel carrying his Spikeball set for him. So, and as we're getting more and more of these, this is content, right? These are our email newsletters, and it's like, we're not using paid models and just all this fabricated stuff. This is just authentic. Got this from some kids in Southern California, just beautiful photo. Got this, I think these are some guys in South America. We absolutely loved this photo, sent them a note and said, hey guys, we'd like to turn this into a t-shirt. What do you think? And they were just so flattered. They're like, yeah, of course. So, we sent them a couple free Spikeball sets in exchange. And now they are just the king of their high school in the fact that, their face is on a Spikeball t-shirt. I mean, that's what everybody hopes to get to. So just really neat exchanges we're having here. This is a mountaintop in Colorado. I think it might be Mary Jane. And I don't know who these people are, but they emailed me the photos and just said, hey, thought you'd like to check it out. So I don't know how you get the Spikeball set up to lift and all that, but they did. But very cool photo. And the ultimate compliment any brand can get is the tattoo. Harley Davidson does not have that market cornered. We've got a tiny portion of it as well. So this top left forearm is, her name is Jenny Sweet Pickles. That is her real name, I swear to God. She's a PE teacher in upstate New York. She is absolutely awesome. Got the tattoo about 3 months after she started playing. The bottom tattoo, part of our logo as well, a guy named Tommy Adesso, who's been building the round neck community in Denver. He got that, and it's pretty cool. I should get a video of it, but when he flexes his muscles, the guy kind of jumps a little bit, which is kind of neat. So yeah, just great stories we're getting from the community here. This was a part of a Father's Day email we did a few weeks back. This is father and son team Steve and Ryan. They're from Mammoth, California. And in part of the interview, we asked Steve, what's the best part about having your son as a teammate? And he says, the bond that's created when you compete, practice, and play together is hard to replicate. As a father of 3 young ones, I could only hope to have the relationship that these two have. And what brought them was, about a year or so ago, they realized Ryan was getting closer to shipping off for college, and they wanted to spend some more time together. And what could they do to do that? Ryan was enjoying Spikeball. His dad played once or twice and kind of jumped in, and they said, let's compete together. And they've been to 5, 10 tournaments now. They're driving all up and down the West Coast, Seattle, San Francisco, Santa Monica. They've been everywhere. This past weekend, I was in Coney Island in New York at a tournament. We had almost 400 people there. Steve and Ryan flew from Mammoth to New York to compete in this tournament. Just what a cool father-son experience. And so I was asking them if they're going to be in Washington, D.C. at our national championship, which October 15th, so you're all invited. Please come. I was asking if they're going to come, and Steve, the dad, was like, yeah, really hoping we're going to make it, and Ryan was kind of quiet, and Ryan's heading to Stanford as a freshman this fall. And he isn't quite sure what his workload's going to be, so he wasn't sure, if he could cut classes or something. But his dad, being a good dad, was like, "Cut classes. We're going to nationals. Come on." So glad that they've got their priorities right. So again, just really neat experiences that they're having together. You heard me mention earlier about sort of people lighting the fire, and we are trying to pour gasoline on these fires. It's way easier to pour gas on the fire than to try to light the fire. So, we didn't decide that Young Life is a fantastic place to go or that Ultimate Frisbee. Somebody else did that. We just identified those people and then stayed in the background and said, okay, how can we help them achieve what it is they're looking to do? So Young Life meetings are a lot more efficient, I shouldn't say efficient, but a lot more meaningful due to a lot of the bonds that these people have created through playing. One time we failed. We did try lighting the fire. We had a tournament in Charleston, South Carolina back in the early days, and we had some friends that ran a company down there, kind of a similar beach kind of theme, and agreed we were going to co-host a tournament down there. And we had no sales down there, no presence. I really knew nobody down there, but it's a beach, it's a cool town, so yeah, let's do it. So we got a logo made up, did a ton of promotion, flew down there, expenses of flights, hotels, and all that, and total failure. I think we had more people actually working the event than attended it. So I think it was literally under 10 people that came, and it cost us a lot of money. And I was like, all right, this cost us a ton. We're trying to start something. If we had taken all that efforts helping others that had already lit the fire, I think we would have been much, much better off. So my team hears me say, pour gas on that fire, and that's still what we do to this day, and it's been working pretty well. One other way that the community's been working with us is in tournaments. So this is a photo from our national championship last year in Nashville. This is on Vanderbilt's campus. Had almost 300 players. They traveled from 27 different states. There were families of 4 and 5 that flew in from the coasts so they could watch their son or daughter compete. Those families are now becoming friends, and just this community is getting tighter and tighter. As I may have mentioned earlier, we're going to have about 250, maybe 300 tournaments this year. Almost all of those are run by people in their hometown. We as a company are going to run maybe 20, 30 tournaments. The cool thing is about those tournaments tournament directors keep 75% of the revenue. So we have high school and college kids that have made over $1,000 on a single tournament. It's great to see just these kids kind of using their organizational skills, their promotional skills, their sales skills, and just getting some real experience of just trying to build these communities within their towns and their colleges and stuff. It's an official intramural sport or club sport at over 100 universities nationwide. So it's been really neat to see how people are kind of making this their own. We're going to have national, as I said this past Saturday, I was in Coney Island. That was our biggest ever. That was not run by the company. That was run by a local guy from Long Island City. And it was, I think we had 18 states and 30 colleges represented there. And yes, there's people competing and wanting to do nothing more than win, but there were a lot of people at that tournament that were playing the game for the first time ever. They were just there for fun. So there's a lot of hokey games in between the games. I'd say the tournaments are probably 65% fun, 35% hardcore competition. And for the more competitive folks, we have created a national ranking system. So we've got over 1,500 teams that are ranked right now. We've carved the country into 4 regions. So we have regional championships. We have big sponsors calling us, wanting to get involved in the tournament. So and one other thing from the tournaments, a beneficial thing has been, we're in tons of retailers now. We're in Dick's Sporting Goods, REI, Modell's, you name it. And if it's a big sporting goods company, we're there. We didn't call any of them. They all called us and said, hey, we've been hearing about you. You guys are doing something. And, we're a tiny little company. And the fact that someone as big as Dick's is calling us, that's huge. And we've got a great relationship with most of them. So it's been very nice. One other thing that we're doing we've done with the community, and it's been very important, is product development. So about a year and a half ago, we put up a Facebook post that said, imagine you're a Spikeball product designer. What does Spikeball 2.0 look like? And the overwhelming majority of responses we got was describing some sort of more premium level product. So it was, a nicer, higher, better quality material, or a better ball, better backpack, etc. So we took that feedback, turned it into what we now call the Spikeball Pro Set, launched it a few months ago, and it's doing really, really well. And the community can take pride in that because their fingerprints are on that. That was their idea. It wasn't me or some other guys that were kind of sitting around saying, let's develop this. It was the community's idea. In general, the community has been just absolutely critical for us. When we launched, I figured, you'd give me your $50, I'd ship you a box, and that would pretty much be it. But the stories I've heard, the communities, the relationships that I'm seeing people form amongst each other, and the people that I've met, that's been just absolutely the most gratifying part of this business. So with that, thank you.